The security guard's hand pressed against my shoulder, firm and unshaken, as his words cut through the laughter and soft music like a cold blade. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." I stood frozen in the doorway, unable to move, unable to breathe. The restaurant was warm and full of cheerful chatter, the kind of place you book weeks in advance for Mother's Day brunch. My dress, which I had chosen so carefully, suddenly felt too tight, too bright, too hopeful. In my hand I held a small gift bag, a vintage camera I had saved for months to buy, because I knew how much Sophie loved photography. Now it felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "There must be some mistake," I whispered, my voice barely louder than the gentle jazz playing in the background. "I'm Sophie Martinez's mother. This is her Mother's Day celebration." But the guard didn't move, didn't even blink. Behind him, I saw a long decorated table covered in white roses and gold accents. Influencers. Stylish people. Sophie's new crowd. And then I saw her, my daughter. She was laughing at something someone had said, her perfectly styled hair glowing under the soft lights, her dress probably more expensive than my entire wardrobe. She hadn't even looked in my direction. "Sophie," I called, my voice catching in my throat. "Honey, it's Mom." The laughter died instantly. Every head at the table turned toward me, their eyes filled with confusion, judgment. Phones were already in hands. Of course they were. This was content now. The dramatic mother, crashing the brunch of her famous daughter. Sophie stood slowly, her face tight with something I hadn't seen in years, anger. "You weren't invited," she said clearly. "You don't belong here." Her words hit harder than I could have imagined. I stumbled back, my heart racing, wondering how this had become my life. This wasn't the same girl who used to make me burnt toast on Mother's Day, who curled up with me during thunderstorms, who cried after bad dates and sent me pictures of random dogs to make me smile. "Sophie, please," I said again, moving toward her, ignoring the guard's warning hand. "We need to talk. There are things you don't know." But she interrupted me, her voice cold and final. "I know everything I need to know. Don't make this harder than it has to be." The security guard's grip tightened. I looked past him, past Sophie, to the head of the table. Elena Martinez. My ex-mother-in-law. Sophie's grandmother. She was watching the entire scene unfold with a small, smug smile. She raised her champagne glass slightly in a toast, her diamond bracelet catching the light. I recognized it. I'd seen it before, last week, in the photographs that had shattered everything. I had found them while cleaning out Toby's study, my ex-husband Sophie's father. I hadn't planned to find anything. I was just trying to clean, trying to make space, trying to hold on to the idea that if I cleared out his old things, maybe Sophie would come visit more often. But instead I'd found something else, an envelope full of secrets. And now, looking at Elena across the room, I knew she knew I'd found them. She had to. "Come on, honey," Elena said sweetly to Sophie, just loud enough for me to hear. "Don't let this upset you. Today is about celebrating mothers who actually deserve it." Sophie nodded and sat back down. She picked up her phone, turned it to selfie mode, and smiled for a picture with Elena. Then she typed a caption. I watched in disbelief as she posted it to her millions of followers. Asterisk grateful for the mother figure who never gave up on me. Happy Mother's Day to the woman who taught me what real love looks like. Hashtag blessed, hashtag chosen family asterisk. The likes started rolling in almost immediately. Heart emojis, fire emojis, comments from strangers telling her how beautiful she looked, how lucky she was to have such a caring woman in her life. I felt like I was watching my own funeral through glass, like I was a ghost in someone else's story. The guard led me out, gently but firmly. People whispered as we passed. Some were already uploading their own clips. By tomorrow the world would know. Influencer Sophie Martinez's mother crashes brunch and gets thrown out. But none of them knew the truth. Not yet. They didn't know what I had found in those photographs. They didn't know the lies that had been told to tear my daughter away from me. As I stepped outside, the spring air slapped me in the face, warm and cruel. I turned to glance through the restaurant's floor-to-ceiling windows. Sophie was smiling for more pictures, her arm around Elena, glowing like everything was perfect. But I knew better. I pulled out my phone, my hands trembling, and opened the folder I had saved. Dozens of images. Elena's face in every one. And not one of them innocent. These weren't family memories. They were weapons, proof of something darker than anyone realized. The question wasn't whether I had the truth. The question was, would I be strong enough to use it? I knew I had no choice. Not anymore. For Sophie, for the truth, for the years that had been stolen from us, I had to act. The photographs were still spread out across my kitchen table like a story that had been hidden in plain sight. For 7 days I had stared at them, each image digging deeper into my soul. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. All I could do was look at them, trying to understand how everything I believed about my life had been false. It had started so simply. I finally gathered the courage to clear out Toby's study. He'd been gone for 2 years, and Sophie had gently suggested I turn it into something useful. A home office, maybe. Guest room. The truth was, she barely visited anymore. But I held on to hope. I thought maybe if I cleared the space, she'd come home. Maybe she'd see me trying. I found the envelope by accident, tucked behind a loose board in the back of his desk drawer. My hand shook as I opened it. Inside were photographs. Dozens of them. Some dated 15 years back. Elena was in every single one, but not like the polished matriarch she pretended to be. These were pictures of her in intimate settings with powerful, married men. City officials, bankers, businessmen, all people I'd once considered friends or acquaintances. But Elena hadn't just been involved with them, she'd been documenting it, recording it, writing dates on the backs of the photos like trophies. Then came the real poison bank statements, each one showing deposits made into Elena's account, each one matching the timeline of those photographs. She hadn't been having affairs, she'd been blackmailing them. And with that money, she'd influenced every part of our lives. One photo stood out. Elena with Jonathan Walsh, a city councilman. The same month it was taken, Toby insisted we pull Sophie out of public school and send her to a private academy filled with wealthy influencer kids. I'd argued we couldn't afford it. He told me not to worry, Elena had offered to pay. And I believed it. I thought it was kindness. In reality, it was Jonathan Walsh's hush money. Another photo. Elena with Richard Brennan, the president of the bank that approved our home loan. Weeks later, we began renovating our house. The debt crushed us. That stress shattered our marriage. And through it all, Elena was always there. Offering help. Offering advice. Offering money. But nothing she gave was ever hers. Everything had been bought with silence and secrets. My phone buzzed, dragging me from my thoughts. A message from my sister. Asterisk saw the video. Are you okay? Call me. Asterisk I didn't answer. Couldn't. My face had been plastered all over social media. The crazy mother. The attention-seeking ex-wife. The jealous woman trying to ruin her daughter's moment. I opened Sophie's Instagram page. Something I hadn't done since the brunch. The post was still up, her and Elena smiling like royalty. The caption glowing with love. Over 200,000 likes. Comments like, she's lucky to have a real mom figure, and asterisk, chosen family is everything. Asterisk. But what cut deepest was a shaky video. Me being escorted out, my voice cracking as I said Sophie's name. The caption read, asterisk, when your mom crashes your brunch and makes a scene. Yikes. Asterisk the internet didn't know me. But they hated me anyway. I closed the app and looked back at the photographs. And that's when I noticed one I hadn't really studied yet. Elena with David Morrison. My stomach turned. David was the private investigator assigned during our custody case. He had written the report that called me unstable. That claimed I was emotionally unfit. That said I had a drinking problem. All of it. But back then it was enough. The court allowed Sophie to choose who she wanted to live with. She chose her father. She chose Elena's side. Now I knew why. Elena had paid David to destroy me. I stood up from the table, nearly knocking over my chair. My entire life had been rewritten behind my back. My marriage, my reputation, my daughter's love. Elena had stolen it all. My phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated before answering. "Is this Lila Evans?" a male voice asked. "Yes, who's this?" "My name is Detective James Rodriguez with the Financial Crimes Unit. We believe you may have information about Elena Martinez." My throat went dry. "Yes," I said slowly. "I think I do. We're investigating her for multiple counts of extortion and fraud. A source suggested you may have photographs or documents that could help us." I looked down at the mess spread across my kitchen table. My hands were still trembling. "I have what you're looking for," I said. "You'll want to see all of it." The police station was cold, the kind of cold that seeped into your skin and made your nerves stand on edge. The smell of burnt coffee and disinfectant filled the air. So far from the soft vanilla candles I lit at home to calm myself. Detective Rodriguez met me at the front and led me through a maze of quiet hallways. He looked younger than I expected, maybe in his early 40s, with eyes that reminded me of my father's, kind steady but searching. When we reached the small conference room, another detective was already there. Lisa Davies, older, with streaks of gray in her hair and an expression that made it clear she had no patience for games. "This is Detective Davies," Rodriguez said. "She's been leading the investigation into Elena Martinez for the last 8 months." I clutched the manila envelope in my hands like it held my heart. "Practically did. 8 months. This has been going on that long." Davies nodded. "We believe she's been running this operation for at least 15 years. You're not the first person to come forward, but you might have the missing piece we need." I opened the envelope with slow hands and spread the photos and documents across the table. As the detectives leaned in, I watched their expressions shift. They recognized names, faces, connections. Jonathan Walsh, Richard Brennan, David Morrison. People in power. People who had fallen into Elena's web. "Where did you get these?" Rodriguez asked, clearly stunned. "In my ex-husband's study," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "They were hidden. I think Elena was using him to store this stuff. Maybe he didn't know the full extent of it. Or maybe he did." The bitterness in my mouth made the words hard to say. "She used the money she got to control our lives. To buy Sophie's loyalty. To ruin me." Davies picked up a bank statement and nodded. "These match the activity we've been tracking. Elena's careful but greedy. She started demanding larger sums. That's when victims started speaking up." "Who was the first?" asked. "Richard Brennan's wife. She hired a private investigator after noticing withdrawals she couldn't explain. That led her to us. I remembered her well. Elegant, quiet, always smiling beside her husband. I wondered if she had cried in silence the way I had. "There's something else," I said, sliding the photograph of Elena and David Morrison toward them. "He handled our custody battle. He submitted a report filled with lies. Said I was unstable, unfit, things that weren't true. Because of that, Sophie chose to live with her father. With Elena." Rodriguez's eyes narrowed. "We've had questions about Morrison. If we can prove he falsified reports for payment, that opens an entirely new line of charges." I felt dizzy, overwhelmed by the weight of what I was finally letting go of. "What happens now?" "We'll need an official statement," Davies said gently. "And we'll verify everything here. If it all checks out, we'll arrest Elena Martinez soon. Maybe within the week." The words hit me like a gust of wind. I nodded slowly, trying to process it. Elena arrested. Sophie would see it. On the news. All over social media. Her perfect, polished other mother would be exposed for what she really was. "But what about Sophie?" asked. "She doesn't know any of this. She thinks Elena saved her from me. She believes Elena is the only one who ever stood by her." Rodriguez looked at Davies, then back at me. We can't control how this breaks, Mrs. Evans. The media will run wild with it. Elena's victims are high profile. It's going to be everywhere. I thought about Sophie's millions of followers, how much she'd shared of her life online. When the truth came out, the same people who praised her now would turn on her in seconds. Then I need to tell her myself, I said. Before she hears it from strangers. Davies gave a slow nod. Prepare yourself. She may not believe you. Not right away. I know. My voice trembled. But I have to try. After giving my statement and handing over the evidence, I drove home in a fog. The sunset smeared the sky in purples and oranges, the kind of colors Sophie used to photograph before her life became a constant stream of brand deals and followers. I parked in my driveway and sat there for a long time staring at my phone. No missed calls. No messages. She hadn't reached out. I checked her social media again. Spa day with Elena. Matching robes. Green face mask. Filtered smiles. Not a care in the world. I swallowed the lump in my throat and typed a message. Sophie, we need to talk. There are things about Elena you don't know. Please call me *. Her reply came fast. Mom, please stop. I can't deal with more drama. Elena warned me you might start this again after brunch. Course she had. Elena had prepared her for this. Just like she'd prepared everything else. I tried again. This isn't drama, sweetheart. Elena is in serious legal trouble. Have evidence. She's being investigated, *. Before I could finish, my phone rang. Sophie's name lit up the screen. What did you just say? Her voice was sharp, panicked. Sophie, where are you? I'm at Elena's house. We're having dinner. What do you mean she's in trouble? I closed my eyes, already imagining Elena listening in from the other room. Please just come home. Let me show you what I found in Dad's study. Let me explain everything. No, she said quickly. I'm not going anywhere. Tell me now. She's been blackmailing people for years, Sophie. She used that money to manipulate everything in our lives. She paid a man to lie about me in court. She turned you against me. There was silence. I could hear muffled talking in the background. Elena's voice, calm and smooth, coaching her. That's insane, Sophie said finally. You're accusing her of being a criminal because you can't accept that I chose her over you. The police called me today, I said quietly. They're going to arrest her. This is real. You're lying, she said. But her voice cracked. I have photos, documents, everything. Please, Sophie. Just come see it for yourself. Long pause. Breathing. I need to think, she whispered. And the line went dead. I sat there, frozen, the silence of the car pressing down on me like a weight I couldn't shake. My daughter was at Elena's house, alone, with a woman who had spent years weaving a web of lies strong enough to rip apart everything we once had. For the first time, Sophie hadn't blindly defended Elena. For the first time, doubt had crept into her voice. But doubt wasn't enough. Not with Elena. I knew what she was capable of, and I couldn't let Sophie face that monster by herself. A dark chill ran through me as I remembered the black sedan from the night before, parked across the street, engine idling, windows blacked out. It had disappeared by morning, but the feeling of being watched hadn't. Elena knew. She knew the walls were closing in, and she would do whatever it took to protect the twisted kingdom she'd built on other people's secrets. I hadn't just betrayed her trust, I'd shattered her illusion of control. I barely slept that night. Every creak of the house made my heart pound. Every passing car made me flinch. I kept checking my phone, praying for another message from Sophie. Something. Anything. But nothing came. At 7 a.m. the doorbell rang. I moved cautiously, peeking through the peephole, my breath catching when I saw her. Sophie. Still in yesterday's clothes. Her makeup was smeared, her eyes puffy, and her hands were trembling slightly. She looked like a girl who had seen too much too fast, like a child waking from a nightmare that wasn't quite over. When I opened the door, she didn't speak right away. Show me, she said, her voice hoarse. Show me this evidence you claim to have. I stepped aside, letting her in. She didn't look at me. Just walked straight toward the kitchen, where I had laid out the most damning photos and bank statements. Copies I'd made before handing the originals to the police, just in case. She stood at the edge of the table for a moment, staring down, her arms folded tightly across her chest. I watched her eyes move to the first photograph. Elena with Jonathan Walsh. Her face went pale. This could be photoshopped, she said after a moment, but even she didn't sound convinced. Look at the bank statements, I said softly, stepping beside her. Look at the dates. The deposit matches the month she offered to pay for your private school. Look at the amount. It's exactly the tuition cost. Sophie picked up the paper with trembling fingers, scanning it over and over. Elena didn't pay for your education out of love, I said gently. She paid for it with extortion money. Money she got by threatening powerful men. Men whose wives and families were destroyed because of her. She sank into a chair, staring at the documents, her fingers covering her mouth. This doesn't make sense, she whispered. Elena loves me. She's been like a real mother to me. I swallowed the pain those words brought and sat across from her. She made you feel loved, yes. But she did it while tearing our family apart behind your back. Why? Sophie's voice cracked. Why would she do that to us? I hesitated, choosing my words carefully. I think your dad found out about her blackmail. Maybe he threatened to expose her. Maybe he wanted to walk away from whatever deal they had. So Elena did what she always does, she got ahead of it. She ended our marriage. She made sure you'd trust her more than me. Sophie's eyes welled with tears. Dad knew. I believe so. The photos were hidden in his study. Maybe he kept them as protection. Or maybe he planned to turn her in and didn't get the chance. Then why didn't he? Because he loved you. Because he wanted to keep the peace for your sake. He thought if he kept quiet, he could protect you. Sophie stood suddenly, pacing toward the window, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. This is insane. Elena's been there for everything. My graduation, my first partnership, when I hit 1 million followers. She helped me build my whole career. She made sure you stayed loyal to her, I said. She controlled every opportunity so you'd never question where it all came from. She turned sharply, anger flickering in her eyes. So you're saying my entire life is a lie? That every achievement, every brand deal, every moment was hers, not mine? Not at all, I said quickly. Your talent is real. Your heart is real. The work you've done, the people you've touched, that's all you. But the doors she opened, they weren't hers to open. They were bought and paid for with blackmail money. She sank back into the chair and put her head in her hands. My sponsors, my followers, if they find out, everything I built will collapse. I moved to her side, wanting to hold her, but she pulled back. And you, she said, her voice suddenly sharp. You knew all this and let me humiliate you. You let me post those awful things about you online while you sat here with the truth. I didn't want to just accuse her, I said, trying to stay calm. I needed the police involved. I needed real proof, not just drama. I didn't want her to cover her tracks. Sophie's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and paled again. It's Elena, she said quietly. She's been calling and texting all night. She wants me to come over for breakfast. Don't go, I said quickly. Please, Sophie, that's dangerous. She's not going to kill me, Sophie laughed bitterly. She's a manipulator, not a murderer. But as she grabbed her purse and moved toward the door, a chill crept through me again. I remembered the look in Elena's eyes. The way she watched me at the brunch. The black car. The silence. The lies. Sophie, wait, I said, grabbing her arm. At least let me come with you. She shook her head. If I show up with you, she'll know I've seen the evidence. I have to do this alone. Then call me. Every hour. If I don't hear from you, you'll call the police. She smiled sadly. They're probably already watching her house. She wasn't wrong. But it didn't make it any easier to watch her walk out the door into the lion's den. As soon as she left, I picked up the phone and dialed Detective Davies. "My daughter just went to Elena's house," I said, my voice shaking. "She's confronting her. I'm scared for her." "We've been surveilling Mrs. Martinez since yesterday," Davies said calmly. "Your daughter will be safe." "Are you sure?" I whispered. "Elena's backed into a corner. She has nothing left to lose." There was a pause. "We're moving up the timeline. We'll arrest Mrs. Martinez this afternoon, whether your daughter is there or not." But I wasn't waiting. I was already in the car. My daughter had walked into the center of a storm I had helped create, and I wasn't going to leave her in there alone, so I turned onto Elena's street. My heart pounded so hard I could barely see straight. Police cars were already converging from both ends of the quiet cul-de-sac, their flashing lights painting the perfect suburban homes in streaks of red and blue. Elena's house sat like a picture from a magazine. Manicured lawn, flower beds blooming with color, and a crisp white fence. It looked peaceful. But I knew better. I parked behind one of the unmarked cruisers and stepped out just as Detective Davies spotted me. She jogged over, her expression grim. "Mrs. Evans, you shouldn't be here." "Where's my daughter?" I demanded, unable to keep the panic out of my voice. "Elena has barricaded herself in the back room. Sophie's with her." My knees nearly gave out. "Is she hurt?" "Not as far as we can tell," said another voice. Detective Rodriguez, stepping up beside us. "We've made contact with her. She's scared but unharmed. Elena is refusing to come out and won't let Sophie leave." "Then break the door down." Snap. "Get her out of there." "We're trying," Davies said, her tone sharp but controlled. "But Mrs. Martinez is threatening to harm herself if we come in without negotiating. She's requested to speak to you. Alone." My blood turned to ice. "With me. She says she'll release Sophie if you go inside to talk." "Absolutely not," Davies said firmly. "We don't send civilians into live hostage situations." But I was already walking toward the house. "Mrs. Evans, stop," she shouted, grabbing my arm. "Let us handle this. We have trained negotiators." "Elena doesn't want strangers," I said, pulling free. "She wants me. And maybe if I can get close enough, I can get Sophie out." Through the large front window, I saw Elena standing in the living room, holding up her phone like a shield, recording, maybe even live-streaming. She wanted to control the story until the very end. Davies pressed a finger to her earpiece and spoke into her radio. "Prep a wire. 5 minutes. If we're letting her go in, she's going in our way." They fitted me with a tiny earpiece and microphone, the wire thin and hidden beneath my shirt. Rodriguez stood close as they checked the signal. "You follow our instructions exactly. If we say get out, you get out." I nodded, my hand already on the gate. Elena opened the door before I could knock. She looked nothing like the polished, composed woman I remembered. Her silver hair was messy, her blouse wrinkled, and her smile, the one she wore for cameras, was cracked and hollow. "Lila," she said, her tone light but her eyes sharp. "How lovely of you to come. At last. Where's Sophie?" I asked, my voice tight. "She's safe. Come in. We have a lot to talk about." I stepped inside, every sense on high alert. The house felt like a trap, a place I had once walked into without fear, now buzzing with danger. Elena led me into the kitchen. Family pictures lined the hallway, images of Sophie's milestones, all carefully staged, none with me in them. "Would you like some coffee?" Elena asked, cheerful in a way that made my skin crawl. "I just made a fresh pot. I want to see my daughter." "All in good time." She poured herself a cup with a calmness that didn't match the moment. "First, I'd like to know why you were so eager to destroy our family." "Our family?" I laughed, bitter and tired. "You destroyed my marriage. You stole my daughter. You blackmailed people for years. And now you're pretending to be the victim." Elena's smile twitched. "I gave people what they wanted, Lila. These men, they were bored." I offered excitement. They offered money to keep their secrets. I never forced them. I simply benefited from their guilt. You didn't just take their money, I said. You used it to buy your way into our lives. Into Sophie's trust. I gave Sophie everything you couldn't. Future, career, real connections. You used stolen money and lies to buy her love. You poisoned her against her own mother. Her eyes darkened. You were depressed, Lila. Weak. You were clinging to Sophie so tightly you were suffocating her. I gave her space to breathe. I made her shine. I heard Davy's voice crackle softly in my earpiece. Asterisk, keep her talking. We're almost ready, asterisk. You don't know what sacrifice means, Elena continued, her voice rising. Years of playing the doting grandmother. Smiling for photos while managing everything in secret. I gave up my life to make Sophie into someone the world would admire. And now you want to tear it down out of jealousy. No, I said quietly. I want my daughter back because I love her. I never tried to control her. You did. Mom. The voice came from behind us. Soft, broken. Sophie stood in the hallway, her face pale and her eyes red. She was shaking. Sophie. I rushed to her, but stopped short when I saw the bruises on her wrist. Finger-shaped, ugly. I heard everything, she whispered. She really did all those things, didn't she? Elena stepped forward. Sweetheart, I did it for you. Everything. Every choice I made was to give you a better life. By lying. By hurting people. By turning me against my own mother. Sophie's voice cracked into anger. That's not love. That's control. She was holding you back, Elena snapped. You were destined for so much more, and she wanted to keep you small. My mother loved me, Sophie said, stepping beside me. She made mistakes, but she never manipulated me. She never bought my affection with stolen money. Elena's face broke. Please, we can run away. Just the two of us. Like we always talked about. We can start over. I never planned to run away with a criminal, Sophie said, voice steady. And I'm not abandoning my real mother again. She reached for me and wrapped her arms around my waist. I held her tightly, afraid to even blink. 3 years of silence, of pain, of distance, undone in one moment of truth. I'm so sorry, Mom, she whispered. I'm so sorry for everything. You're here now, I said, stroking her hair. That's all that matters. The front door burst open. Officers flooded in with weapons drawn. Elena didn't move. She just stared at Sophie like the world had ended. They placed her in handcuffs without a struggle. I loved you, she said, tears sliding down her face. Everything I did was because I loved you. No, Sophie whispered. Everything you did was because you needed control. That's not love. And just like that, they led Elena away. 6 months later. Our lives looked nothing like they had before. But for the first time in years, that wasn't a bad thing. Sophie and I sat at the kitchen table, papers and notebooks scattered between us, sipping coffee while planning the launch of her new photography business. It wasn't flashy. There were no brand deals, no product placements, no scripted content for millions of followers. Just Sophie, her camera, and a dream that actually belonged to her. After the arrest, the story exploded. Headlines spread faster than we could keep up. Influencer's grandmother exposed in blackmail scandal. Community leaders caught in 15-year web of lies. Elena Martinez's name was everywhere. Photos, court documents, interviews with ruined families. The truth hit like a hurricane. Sophie's following, once filled with admiration, turned into a battlefield. People unfollowed. Sponsors pulled out. The online praise disappeared, replaced by questions, doubts, judgment. But somehow, Sophie didn't fall apart. She deactivated most of her accounts, posted one final message. Asterisk, what you build on lies will always collapse. I'm starting over. For real this time. Asterisk, then she walked away. Elena was sentenced to 10 years in prison. The men she blackmailed were exposed publicly, and their families were left to pick up the pieces. Some filed lawsuits. Some disappeared from public life. But Sophie and I stayed. We didn't run. We didn't hide. We healed quietly, carefully, together. Do you ever regret it? Sophie asked one night, her voice low as she flipped through an old photo album. It was filled with pictures from the years before everything fell apart. Birthday parties, camping trips, matching aprons in the kitchen. A simpler time, before secrets and courtrooms and betrayals. I thought about her question for a long moment. I regret that so many people got hurt, I said honestly. I regret the years we lost. But I don't regret the truth coming out. And I don't regret getting you back. Sophie leaned her head on my shoulder, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm sorry I believed her. I'm sorry I posted those things. I'm sorry I pushed you away. I wrapped my arm around her, kissing the top of her head. You were manipulated by a master. You were just a kid trying to survive something you didn't understand. She nodded slowly. But I understand now. Outside the window, the sky was painted with streaks of orange and gold. The kind of sunset Sophie once tried so hard to capture on camera for a perfect post. But this time, there was no lens between her and the world. No filter. No audience. Just her, sitting beside her mother, quietly watching the light fade. We had lost 3 years. But we had the rest of our lives to rebuild what had been taken. Not the followers. Not the image. Just the love. The trust. The truth. And this time no one could take that away from us.